It's time for a Humans in Tune conversation with Darren on 93.9 Mike FM.
Hey friends, it's Darren in the 93.9 Mike FM studios, and it's time for another Humans in Tune conversation for your Thursday. And I'm proud to have you here with us on Facebook, or perhaps you're listening after the fact on the podcast. This interview today is kind of a full circle event for me because I first met my guest back in 2012 when I interviewed her for the Southeast Missourian for their Thanksgiving edition. That was how I met her. And now we've been friends for the better part of, 13 years here. And so we're going to tune in and hang out with Megan Goncher, and please welcome her to the studios. They're clapping on Facebook for you right now. I can hear them. Yeah. So Megan, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to have you here. I mentioned that we met in 2012, and then again, that was to share your story of your cochlear implant. And at that time, you were just over a year into having this done. So this was very new to you. Now here we are, fast forward 11 and a half years later, and we're going to continue that conversation. But to bring everybody with Mike FM up to speed, you had a cochlear implant surgery. For those who are unfamiliar at all with what a cochlear implant is, give them the quick elevator speech on what a cochlear implant does.
Okay, so a cochlear implant is it's a last resort for people with severe hearing loss or total deafness, okay? And it's an implantable device, and then you have an outside speech processor. Mm-hmm. It gives you sound and speech understanding, okay? So it's not just a hearing aid that amplifies sound and speech, okay? It gives you the speech understanding and the sound.
Right. So it's next level beyond, the hearing aid thing. And then, of course, obviously, we say it was a life-changing event for you and for anybody who's had a cochlear implant done. Now, we'll get into your history a little bit more. At the time you did your cochlear implant surgery, how many of these were going on around the country? Was this a pretty regular thing at this point, or was this still pretty relatively new technology?
Well, the cochlear implant was invented in 1984.
Okay.
So, my entire childhood, we can get into that at some point, but, I was born in 1984, showing my age here, but I was born in 1984, but, it was not as heard of as it is now. I mean, I kind of feel like, and maybe this is just because it was my first experience with it, I kind of feel like that's when it was becoming known.
Well, no, I think you're right on that, because a lot of things, medically, technology speaking, where the technology was finally at a point where it could become affordable and realistic and usable in a practical sense. A lot of times before that, it was a lot of prototypes and experimentation. But so let's dial it back a little bit and talk a little bit more about your experience coming into this, and what brought you to the point that you needed a cochlear implant.
So, I guess we'll start from the beginning. My mom was contracted.
She was in the hospital. Her mother was giving birth, and there she was. Megan,
no,
ta-da!
My mom contracted a virus called CMV that pregnant women are prone to. Okay, nowadays they test for that when women have children. And, when I was born, they did not test for it.
Right.
CMV causes heart defects, blindness, hearing loss, deafness, brain damage. It can even be fatal if it is severe enough. So it essentially attacks the senses. And I received obviously the hearing loss and some brain damage that I grew out of.
Right.
But my hearing loss, they did not diagnose me until I was 5. They didn't know that I couldn't hear. And
now, how did your parents figure that out, or the doctors figure it out?
I had no reflexes.
Okay.
So, I would stand up. Well, I couldn't hear. I wasn't responding. I didn't listen. My dad likes to say that. He likes to say she doesn't listen.
Not all kids are bad listeners on purpose.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's natural.
Exactly. So he likes to say, but in all seriousness, they did. And my mom's a nurse, but again, this was not something they had experience with. So what was happening was I couldn't hear, and 2, I didn't have a middle ear. And your middle ear gives you your equilibrium so that you have balance and you can walk and all those kinds of things. So I would fall down I would just fall. Like I wasn't catching myself.
Beyond clumsy.
Yes, beyond clumsiness, beyond anything. And so then when I was 5, I had tubes in my ears and all those normal things that babies go through. And then when I was 5, my mom and dad took me to Chris Young's office, who's an ENT here, and who had done some of my tubes, and Elaine Viesink, who's one of the most wonderful people. She, Elaine was my speech therapist.
Okay.
But Kathy Willen was my audiologist, and it was her first day.
Oh, wow.
It was her first day, and she's also one of the most wonderful people. And she did my hearing test, and she said she can't hear. And they were like, "What?" They were like, "You're gonna have to do that again because,
right?
Are you sure?" And she's like, "It's my first day, okay? Like I'll do it again." And she diagnosed me with my hearing loss. And then I had a tympanoplasty, which is where you have a hole in your eardrum and they graft that. And that gave me something back. When I was 8, my second grade teacher, Miss Chasteen, told my parents she can't hear. I'm moving her up to the front of the class. That helped a lot.
Right.
Because as a kid or anyone, you subconsciously are developing closure skills, lip reading skills, reading body language,
sure.
all those things. But I didn't know I couldn't hear. I had no idea.
Right.
And so, and then throughout my life, it just got progressively worse. Now, with the falling and the motor skills and the things, my dad just threw me into sports. He was like, "You're going to play this, you're going to play that, you're going to do everything.
Let's get you athletic.
Yeah.
Let's get you..."
And it's occupational therapy also.
Yeah.
So, and I loved that. I'm an athlete. I love sports. And then when I was 16, my hearing loss drastically changed. And I think I've just been in denial because nobody wants to think that there's something wrong with them.
No.
Or that they have some sort of...
It is hard to concede a weakness.
Yes. And, you want to be like other kids and you want to do the things and you want to be a good student and all that.
You want to be normal.
Yeah, you want to be normal, whatever that means.
Right.
I am definitely not normal.
And our vision of normal at 16 is kind of skewed.
Yeah, very
a little
much
bit.
so. Very much so. And so then I had another hearing exam when I was 16 because the TV was so loud. My mom was like, "You cannot, turn the TV down." And Dr. Schrader here, he told my mom, he said she's going to need hearing aids by the time she's 21, when in fact I probably should have had them at that time.
At that point, yeah.
At that point. I graduated high school. I got a full-ride softball scholarship to Lindenwood University in St. Charles. I dropped out of school. I couldn't hear. Other things were happening in life.
Right.
And then when I was 22, I completely lost my hearing. So.
And that was the point, a few years obviously before I met you, but that was the point where I'm sure you felt, what's my next step? What do I do now? I can say I screwed up in college. Mine had nothing to do with being unable to hear and function in my classes. But, you reach a point where you're like, man, I don't know what road. I can't even see a road. I'm just kind of lost in the wilderness. So you find yourself at this point, then what's Megan's next step? What's up on the list?
Well, Megan's next step was I've always had a job. So I was like, I need to work,
right.
Which I was working. But at 22, my sister actually, Jenny, I went to, she took me to get, so I'll back up a second. I couldn't hear anything, and my mom and my sister and my grandmother sat down one night to watch P.S. I Love You. There were no captions. I watched that movie completely deaf and red lips the whole movie. And that's when I was like, I should probably say something to someone. And one night, my mom and I were sitting on her couch, and I saw an ad in the newspaper for a hearing aid trial. And I said, "Mom, what if I, tried this?" And I think that's pretty bold for a 22-year-old to be like, "Hey, maybe I need some assistance here." So anyway, my sister took me, and I think it was a profound experience because I could hear her. I could hear her around the corner. I could, at that point, hearing aids were helping me some.
Right.
And then the next 4 years, that's what I did. But it just was not cutting it.
Right.
It was not cutting it. And I had to like, I'm an insurance agent today,
Mm-hmm.
and back then I had my license, and I couldn't take meetings with people. I couldn't hear on the phone because the hearing aids didn't have Bluetooth like they do
Right.
now.
And all that compounds how you function day to day, right?
It does. It compounds how you function. It affects your relationships,
Your
your
emotional
job,
state.
your interactions, your sleep, your health, your memory. It affects so many things. I mean, hearing is so vital to your health.
Mm-hmm.
It is so vital to your health. It causes depression, memory loss, sleep deprivation,
Anxiety.
gosh, social skill decline. You see it in the older generation.
Right.
And so I was so young, I knew that something had to be done, but I didn't know it was going to be done. So I I quit selling insurance and I cleaned houses for about 5 years because I didn't have to talk to anybody.
You could get it done, be successful, make your paycheck, and not
And my
have
clients
the
could
added
text me.
stress.
My clients could text me. I didn't have to pick up the phone.
Right.
I didn't have to see them. So that was a really good gig for me at that time.
Right. But not where you necessarily wanted to be for the rest of your life, right? You're looking at, okay, is this the best it's going to get, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And-
oh gosh, you're gonna make me cry.
That's what I do. Bring it. I almost had a verklempt moment the other day with
my
Nate.
gosh, you're gonna
Nate
make
said
me
the same thing.
cry.
Look, that's it. Humans in Tune, making guests cry since 2021. So, and you find yourself at this point, and I think a lot of people at 22, I myself at 22, and you're trying to think of that road. And sometimes when something like this roadblock is there, you take a darker road, you take a darker turn, and you end up somewhere that's even worse than where you're at. You managed to keep above that, which is amazing. And I think a lot of that comes from your family support. I remember I think it might have even been the picture we used in that original interview, but it was you and your mom and your grandma and everybody ganged up and hanging out. So you're at this point, you've been doing this cleaning job. Let's talk about the road to getting to the cochlear implant.
Okay, so in 2010, things just continued to get worse. And when I say they continued to get worse, meaning I began to notice.
The functionality things.
Other people were knew, but I was in denial, because you have all these other skills, like these closure skills, reading body language. When you do, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but when you do cochlear candidacy testing to see if you're a candidate for a cochlear implant, you do a lip reading test. And I got a 100% on my lip reading test.
Which is probably not a good thing if you're trying to get a cochlear implant, right? Because they're like you're functional or...
No, it is a good thing because they want to
okay.
see what you're not getting.
Okay.
Because if you can't read lips very well, it might tell them that you can hear something.
I got you.
You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so,
because your level of severity acted up, got these other things to come
come out. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, our bodies are incredible. Our intuitions are
For
incredible.
sure.
When you lose something, the rest of it's making up for it.
We adapt and recover. That's what we do.
You adapt and recover, yes. And so, anyway, so at the point in 2010, I began to notice, and I was like, something's not right here. Jan Seabaugh was an ENT here, and my mom took her. She goes, let's just go see Jan, see what's going on. And I had a tumor in my right ear. And it's called a cholesteatoma. People are born with them. They typically show up in adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not taken care of, they can be fatal because it's right near your brain.
Not a good spot, yeah.
It's not the place you want anything to be. And so she said, you know what? She goes, this is what this is. We're just going to get this out, take care of it. So I had a surgery with her in May in 2010. And then my journey at Barnes, not at Barnes, but my journey in St. Louis began after that because I needed to repair what she took out.
Right.
So Dr. Smith at St. John's Mercy, who was wonderful, he did another surgery in November of 2010, and he put prosthetics in my ear to rebuild those bones. And it didn't work. But he did not recommend a cochlear implant for me. He said, I don't think she's ready. I couldn't hear.
Right.
I was like, I can't hear you.
And how big of a heartbreaker was that?
It was devastating because all these years I had been in such denial, you just want, like we discussed at the beginning, you just want to be normal. You just want to think that, you can do everything everybody else can do, and like you're gonna have a career and you're gonna have these things, and
don't cry because you do. You're here. We're good.
You. Thank
You're
you.
awesome.
Yes. So God is so good.
Yeah.
You know?
Spoiler alert. Sorry if you're in for the whole story. You stick around. Don't go anywhere.
Stick around. So he so anyway, so I came back home after that surgery, and Kathy Willen, who's been my audiologist my entire life here, who's incredible. She sat my mom and I down after she'd done another hearing exam, and she said, I really think it's time for a cochlear implant. And I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Right.
I'm like, what?
Okay, so fill me in.
Because she was like, it's really kind of a last resort thing when hearing aids are no longer working for you, or they don't work for you, or whatever. And so, and we can get into why that's such a big deal, but it's, and my mom was just like, what? Because we knew nothing about it.
Right.
And she gave me the recommendation of doctors. She was like, I think this guy would be great for you. I think this guy would be great with you. She paired me with an incredible doctor, Gail Neely at Barnes, and that's where my journey at Barnes began.
Okay.
It's a phenomenal place, and it changed my life.
That's it. And so basically, you got to that point, and it was time to set up the surgery, talk about it, learn about it. I mean, how much did you have to learn before you even started digging in on preparations and testing and so forth? I mean, I'm sure you wanted to know what the heck they're going to stick on your head, right? And in your head.
I did. So
did it scare you thinking of having, that kind of situation?
It did scare me, but I'll tell you what really scared me was the day. It was December 1st. I'll never forget this, of 2010. And it was my first appointment with Dr. Neely in St. Louis. He has since passed. God rest his soul. He has since passed. But they want all their own hearing tests. So, like, everything Kathy Willen or I'd ever had done in my whole life, like, they were just
don't
like,
even looking at
we
it.
don't even want that because we just want to know what's happening now.
Okay.
And, I mean, I think they looked at it, but, So, that day, Darren, I could literally hear nothing. Because at that point, my hearing had come in and out. And when I say hearing, I mean like sound would hit the nerves in my ear, and it might sound like I'm underneath water.
Right, just more of muted noise.
Yes. And so that day, I'm in this booth, and I'm like, I can't hear anything. I don't know if I said that, but I was definitely thinking it. And my audiologist, who was my audiologist for the past 13 years through this whole journey, Lisa Potts, she's absolutely incredible. She came out to meet my mom and I to take me back for my test. I was reading her lips and her body language, and I was talking to her just like I could hear her. And she went back, she did my test, she comes out, she shares the results, and she's like, she has 4% hearing. She's definitely a candidate, and I am totally shocked. And I'm like, why are you shocked? Like, I'm like, I can't hear you, And she said her closure skills and her body language skills, her lip reading skills are incredible.
Because you had adapted so much.
Because I had adapted.
Necessity
Well, I had
required.
worked at it, too, once I realized what I needed to do.
And that's a big deal, because you put in the work. I mean, yeah. But, well, yeah, and I imagine our conversation here, and you don't have that, and then it's only because you can read my lips, and then I come back and go, you didn't hear a word I said, but how'd you figure that out, right?
Yes. Yes. So from there, my journey really began, but I had not yet decided to have the implant done. This was just pre-op testing to really see if I was a candidate. I had steroid injections to see, it's like a protocol, it's like what they do. And Dr. Neely was phenomenal. My surgery was scheduled for May 16th, and I don't remember telling them that I was ready to do this. And this is where I'm like, okay, Lord, like, I'm just,
Take the wheel.
Yeah. Well,
the
I
literal
mean, he's had the
Jesus
wheel,
take the wheel moment.
He's had the wheel, and sometimes we don't know it. But I always say, if you can see his hand in one thing, you can see his hand in everything. And looking back on my journey, through these incredible people, I mean, not only from birth, but from, Dr. Young and Kathy Willen doing that test, and Elaine Sink, I cannot forget her. You know, she was my speech pathologist in elementary school who really helped me to work on my speech and hone my speech and get rid of my lisp and, you know, all these things. And
shout out to those people who are doing that today. I mean, kids in school right now that are
100%
where they're at. Gosh, what incredible selfless work that is.
It is absolutely selfless. And she was such a safe haven for me, you know, because friendships were hard, relationships, listening were hard, you know, and so every day when I got to go to Miss Elaine's room, I was so excited because I knew that she understood me. Mm-hmm. And so shout out to the speech pathologist because sometimes you're the only person that understands that child.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
And as you said, you know, that was a safe haven for you, and that's what they provide. And because school is tough, and you know, having a 15-year-old daughter, I'm picturing Layla, you know, going through what you went through, and it's unfathomable for me as a parent to think of, you know, and I'm sure for your parents, you know, your mom was probably like, I want to fix the world for her. You know, my hands are tied. That's a tough road to walk as a parent too.
And my dad also. I mean, my dad is like, I mean, anybody
that knows your dad,
anybody that knows David Goncher is like, you know, he is such a wonderful person. He has such a big heart, and he's such a passionate person.
Yes.
And he's like, okay, this is what we're going to do.
You
we're
had
gonna fix this.
advocates in your corner.
He's a huge advocate for the right thing and to make people's lives better. Mm-hmm. So when it came to his own, you know, and I think sometimes he couldn't get real involved in, like, the emotional aspect of it. Well, I mean, he's a man.
Right.
You know, because you all see, like, in facts, you know, it's like...
And he's a football player.
Yeah, and he was a football player, he's a football coach, he was a track coach, you know, he did all these things, and so, really, when he put me in all those sports and everything, it taught me self-sufficiency, discipline, respect, you know, all the things that athletics teach you. Mm-hmm. And then I found my love and my place on a mound playing softball, and I owe that to him. Yeah. So...
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So your surgery gets scheduled. Mm-hmm. You go in, you have the surgery, no complications or anything. Things go according to plan for your doctor, right? So, and then we're coming out of the surgery ready for this whole new experience. First off, the surgery was done in St. Louis, right? My
surgery was done at Barnes. Mm-hmm. It was 4 hours. I think they've tapped that down now, obviously, in the last 12 years. It's not 4 hours anymore.
Right.
But I had a great experience. And then you wait. Let's see. What's May 16th to June 9th? Like 2 weeks, 3 weeks for the swelling to go down because they're getting ready to put a magnet on your head. You have a magnet in your head.
Yeah, I'll say they went into your skull, so all that's got to heal. Swelling's got to go down, all that.
Yeah, so the implant is sitting... I don't know how much people want to know about this, but the implant is sitting on your skull.
Right.
And then it wraps around your cochlear, which the thing in your ear that looks like a snail shell.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, in a very primitive perspective, if anybody's used like the bone conduction headphones, it's a similar science.
Yes.
But that's saying this is, you know, a peanut and that's the earth. So it's a similar science, but very, very different. But
yes.
That kind of gives you a concept of what that's doing.
Yes.
So,
and so.
So this is about a 21-day window or so where you've had the surgery, but you can't turn it on yet.
I can't turn it on. And you know what happened after I had my surgery? My left ear is where I have some residual hearing. And when all of that, we'll call it like white noise from my right ear was gone, I could hear out of my left ear.
Just because that distraction
was gone.
That's wild.
And now I can't live on that.
Right.
I can't live on that.
But it was a functional, noticeable change.
Yes, and it was incredible.
That's wild.
And I was like, oh my God. And at that point, I was very happy that I had done this.
And for me, you know, when I think of being deaf, I think of nothing. I don't think of white noise, or I think of, you know, muted noise being present. So that's an interesting thing to think about as well. Mm-hmm. So then it comes time to flip the switch, to put it very archaically, but it comes time to turn things on.
So this is funny because I go to St. Louis. My entire family showed up.
Okay.
My mom, my grandmother, my sister, my dad. And my mom goes with me to the appointment to turn it on, you know, and it's like when you go to your cochlear appointment, it's like fine-tuning a guitar because you have these little electrodes, and that's how you get the perfect speech understanding and the sound. Like, it mimics real hearing. And so I come out, and it was exhausting. This entire process is exhausting, but it's so worth it and so beautiful, okay? And so I come out, and we meet at a restaurant in St. Louis for lunch with my dad, my mom, my sister, my grandma. And my dad starts to talk. And I'm, like, listening to him for, like, a minute. And I said, I love you so much, but you're going to have to not do that. And he said, not do what? And I said, talk. And he said, he like, for a second, he got offended, and I said, it's not you, it's the tone of your voice. The tone of your voice. Sounded like chipmunk. He sounded like a chipmunk. Everything sounded like a chipmunk. The TV sounded like a chipmunk. People sounded like a chipmunk. He sounded like... The chipmunk sounded like higher chipmunk. Yes. It's like, yes. And I was like, you're going to have to not... you're going to have to not do that, you know? And so
Talk extra low, Dad.
I think we sat in that lunch silent. After I had just had this thing turned on so that I could hear. It was very ironic. But then I started hearing therapy.
Well, I can imagine it's pretty overwhelming at first, right?
It's very overwhelming. When I heard my mom... A lot of sounds,
a lot of noise. And with it being pitch change-wise, that would be unexpected, too.
Yeah.
Because, right, you've still got natural hearing in this ear, and then you've got this in this ear. So,
I couldn't hear speech out of this.
Okay.
But it was just, like, I could, like, hear what was going on. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, people are over here doing this or whatever. And, now, the interesting part about that is that when you have that and you're reading lips, your brain tells you can hear that person. It is, that's why people are in denial.
It's like those videos that go around where it's like, you know, so it makes some noise and it says, did you hear cat or cot or whatever, you know?
Yes.
Like, well, you're going to hear one of those because you just read that, and that makes your brain say that. When you,
that's what you heard. Exactly. That's a great, yes, Darren. Okay. And so, yeah, and speaking of that, when I was on my way to my first appointment with Lisa Potts to do, like, this testing for cochlear implants, I was like, Mom, I don't really need this implant. Because my brain had been playing tricks on me that I could hear people because I was so good at reading lips. And she was, like, looked at me, and she was like, you're kidding, right? She's like, you...
Where you can't go back.
Yeah. She's like, you can't hear, you know. So anyway, so it was it's overwhelming, it's emotional, it's hard. It's exciting. It's all these things.
Exhausting.
It's exhausting. Oh, my gosh, Darren. I had this done in May. I was turned on in June. And, like, in July, I'm in my living room. And I got so frustrated because I was so exhausted from hearing. I threw my speech processor up against the wall. And I was like, that probably wasn't the best idea. Yeah. You know, like, these are expensive.
Those are like $10, $15 bucks. No big deal.
It's like more like 10 grand. Like, no big deal, you know, like, whatever. But I thankfully had carpet, so it landed softly. But it's exhausting. I ended up, to be completely transparent, I ended up having severe migraines just from the listening. But, you know, all those things eventually get better if you make the commitment to it. Yeah. This is not, you turn it on. And some of my family members thought this. They were like, oh, she can hear now. Oh, you know, and it's a
balance.
It's a balance, but I just pray that the people that are going to make this decision, that have made this decision, have incredible support.
Yes.
And to the people that are supporting them, like, grace and just patience, you know, because it's exhausting. And I know that's hard when someone can hear. You know, like, even me today, like, I can hear, I forget I have this. And if somebody can't hear me, I find myself
that's a
getting
moment
frustrated.
I want to keep. You can hear and you forget you have this. That right there is a testament to how far you've come with it.
Thank
awesome.
you.
But I interrupt. But so okay, so we're at this point. You've had that, and when I met you for the first time, you'd had it at that point for a little over a year. And I do remember parts of our conversation and talking about the chipmunk stuff. And I remember you saying, you know, and it's kind of nice if you just want to ignore somebody, you just take it off, and you'll be all right with being able to tune them out a little bit. But since the time of us first meeting, you know, part of the reason we're friends is we've got kids. She's the cool aunt, which is kind of you're kind of like the poster child for Mike FM listeners. She's the cool aunt, right? But You and Rachel are like tag team in that action. But so
Yes.
your niece and nephew and my daughter and son are all close friends, and they've kind of grown up together and been silly together. And I love that. And I love that we're able to get them together now and then. But for you in that ability, I think one of the things that made me happy was that because of this, you felt that you could responsibly have Nikki over to spend the night, you know, and you could have a little kid and be responsible for that and not have to worry about what if they, fall and are crying and I can't hear them, that kind of thing, right? And so I'm sure anybody who's had that done as a parent immediately can empathize with that for sure. What else is this? Because it has been an empowerment for you. I mean, you're here, you're successful. We're happy to have you. Life is good. And life is full of measures and mixes. But what else has this empowered you to be able to do, just not just in life, but as kind of an ambassador for what you went through?
Yeah, so I really feel like God has given, people can get so down, like, why me? Why this? Why is this happening to me? And I'm like,
woe is me.
And I'm not going to tell you I've never felt like that.
No, I would hope
person.
that you wouldn't, because I know you'd be full of crap. So
Yeah, exactly.
This is an honest and transparent show, kids.
It is,
right?
It is. And, I'm an open book, and so it's just like like I said before, when you see God's hand, when you look for his hand in one thing, you will see it in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really feel called and led to that this is my gift. This is what I am supposed to share with the world, with other people. It's benefited Nicolette and Will, because it has taught them, my niece and nephew, it has taught them that people are different.
Yep.
Not everyone is like you. We find grace. We find acceptance. We treat them as the way we would treat anybody else. And they get a kick out of it, too, sometimes. Like, if they're in my back seat, Will say something to me. And if I'm just driving, not paying attention, he'll be like, do you have those ears on?
That's all right.
You have
Nice.
your ears on?
Yeah.
Or, like, if they stay the night with me and it's... and now that they're older, I trust that I can take my ears off at night if they're with me.
Sure.
They're going to get up and be like, hey, something's going on, or I need something, or whatever. And it's the sweetest thing. He'll bring them to me. He'll go, hey, I need to talk, can you put these ears on? And, it's just, I don't know, Darren. I can't explain my journey or my life or what's going on or what's happened or the people that have been put in my path to help me have this blessing. But it's all the Lord.
Well, and it's just getting started. I mean, it's been 10 plus years since we talked about it. And, in that early conversation, your motivation at then has stayed on that path. It has been to, teach people that, that message of acceptance, that message of hope that, something, and you may not be talking to a deaf person. Maybe it's somebody who struggles with, arthritis or any kind of issue they're dealing with. If you've got good support, and you're transparent with yourself, there's a way through it. There's a path to help you overcome that. And then as you've done with this, whatever that might be, whatever your affliction might have been, whatever your issue may have been, when you overcome that, I think it is your call from God, from yourself, to be that steward for whatever that was. Whatever you overcame, now it's your turn to be the advocate for these people that were in your spot. You know what I mean? So in 6 months, when I'm 100 pounds lighter, I'm going to be advocating for, cleaning up your business and getting it together.
Darren, you can do that.
I will do that.
I know you
I
will
am
do
gonna
it.
do that.
You will help so many people along the way.
I'm down 14 pounds today.
Let's do it. Let's get
From
it.
2018.
That is excellent. I am so
No,
happy. No,
that's good.
because, I was just speaking of that for a second. I was talking to a very good friend of mine last night about it, and she's kind of on the same journey that you are. And she's like talking about the food. And I'm like, honey, this isn't just about food.
Yeah. There's so much more. Yeah.
This is about
All that
you.
affects
This is
that.
about you're going to learn about yourself, how you're going to help other people, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
I'm so proud of you.
Ah, thanks. I'm proud of you.
Thank
We're proud of
you.
each
I
other.
love it.
We're
I
proud of
love
you, Facebook listener and viewer. Okay, so one of the things we talked about many moons ago was Cochlear America and kind of your relationship, your association, whatever you want to call it, with that organization and what they do.
Cochlear America?
Yeah.
It's the company that made my implant.
Right. So they're making the technology, they're bringing the science to it, making things happen there, but they're also advocating. And not just because obviously they sell their product, they make money. That's not their end goal. Their end goal is to improve the quality of life for people who are dealing with these hearing issues. And so, again, being that ambassador for what got you over the hump, how has that relationship continued with, your manufacturer? Do you have to, the first dumb question is, you got to go in for like updates and stuff? Or, how does that tech work? Have you had to do other things?
Actually, once you initially get turned on and you do your hearing therapy, and then, in my article that just came out with Cochlear America, I talk about rehabilitation, doing therapy on your own. It is vital. It is important. It is, you need to wear your device. You need to, and give yourself grace too. Like,
sure.
If you know that you can only handle half the morning, okay, great. But then you got to pick it back up.
Yep.
Okay. Talk on the phone to people that one, you're familiar with, and two, that maybe you're not familiar. Like, you're not familiar with the sound of their voice over the phone.
Their tone and
listen to music, podcasts, watch TV without captions. See what you can pick up. All of those things on your own are vital.
It's exercise.
It's exercise. It's like anything else. It's like if you're an athlete and you have an injury, what are you going to have to do?
Right. You got to rehab it.
Okay,
Yep.
you got to rehab. And I've been in those shoes too.
Sure.
But so it's just, so then every year you're supposed to go back and during that first year, really, which was my experience, you will go in and you'll like fine tune, because you'll get out in the real world. You'll leave the studio and you'll get out in the real world and you'll hear all these things and pitches and stuff like that. Now I improved. So I went from 4% hearing to 92% hearing.
That's crazy.
With one implant.
88% increase in your hearing with one implant.
And I improved. Like, I kept getting better, and it's because of the work I was doing.
Right.
Okay. And a friend of mine, actually, the friend that I was actually talking to last night, she said, I have a friend whose dad has a cochlear implant, but he said it doesn't work for him. And I said, it doesn't work for him, or he's not working for it.
Yeah.
Because cochlear implants have a less than 1% unsuccess rate. Okay. Now, if there's something defective with the implant, then they may go back in and give you a different one.
But it's 99% of the time, it's not the science.
It's not the science.
Right.
It's the client.
Yep.
Okay? It's not the science. It's the client. And that's not to bash people.
Yeah, no blaming or shaming.
Yeah,
but
no.
You knew what you did. You set your work ethic, and you knew what you had to do to get there. And not all of us are built that way.
Well, I had these two little people that were like,
And that was my next thing. Is like, if you've got something that makes you want to get there, that's your key. That's your water boy tackling fuel, or whatever you want to call it.
Nicolette was 2 when I was implanted. When she was born, I was completely deaf. I didn't even hear her cry. Nobody knew that either. I didn't tell anyone. But
well, now they do.
They do now. But Will showed up in. Wait. No, Will was here. Yeah. Because he showed up in December, and then I was implanted in May. And, oh my gosh, when I walked into my sister's house, after the day I was turned on, and she was all the way back in her room, and I could hear her laughing. Oh, she's hilarious anyway. But I could hear her laughing. It was just like everything.
I bet you cried like all the time.
I cried all the
would
time.
be a sloppy mess, because I'd be like, that
Darren.
puppy just sounded like the one from Fox and the Hound. And I'd be,
I still
walk
cry.
around.
It stormed the other night, and I have a tin roof. My building has a tin roof, and I text a friend, and I was like, oh my God. I was like crying, and I was like, I can hear the rain. I mean, this is like 13 years later, you know? And they're like, oh my God, that's so awesome.
But I love that you still have that amazement out of this 13 years later. You know what I mean? That's awesome. It's hard for me to fathom, as somebody who hasn't really had to go through anything like that, to see how much of a change it could make. But, You mentioned earlier the article that just came out with Cochlear America. That was something I wanted to touch on a little bit.
Okay.
You know, we've been friends on Facebook, and obviously I know, where you're at, and I see happy updates. But we all know how social media is, and there's a lot of things in our lives, too. And you mentioned before we went on that they had reached out to you about, doing a story on you and about your implant and about life and all that good stuff. And you kind of put it on the shelf. You hesitated on doing it.
I did.
For a while.
A year.
Yeah. So a year-ish ago, they reached out and said, hey, we would love to do a feature on you. Let's talk about you, talk about your success with it. Again, provide a visual reference for people who don't know you, don't live in Southeast Missouri, or haven't met you at, whatever the feature or the function might have been. So why the hesitation?
The hesitation because I feel like it's been 13 years and people have heard this story. They've heard my song and dance, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is not profound. This is not interesting. This is, And,
this is just my story.
It's.
I've said it on it. I've heard
Yeah.
it. I know it. I'm past it.
It's like I just, and Catherine, who wrote the art, who, published it for me, helped me with it. She's just so sweet. And every email, I was just like, she was like, are you ready to do this? And I was like, let me just revise this. You know what I'm saying? Let me get back to you. And then it'd be like 3 months and she'd be like, Megan, and I'm like, And so finally, in January, I really set some goals for myself this year with my life. And one of them is to help more people. And so I am really proud.
You finally stopped putting her off? And
stop putting it off. Well, I'm kind of a procrastinator.
Yeah, that's
but,
okay.
I'm like, no one is going to want to know about this.
You had been desensitized to your own miracle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to preach today?
Well, I mean, you think 13 years, right? So, as time passes, we naturally become desensitized to it. I mean, this is going to be the 10th year or 9th year since my mom passed. And we still struggle, we still mourn, but it's not as bad as the week after, the first year, those kind of things. And it's the same way for our successes. Somebody who, lost a leg and got a prosthetic done. After, years of doing that, it
becomes their normal.
It becomes their normal. And
are.
this became your normal, and you didn't see it as stupendous, miraculous, amazing, and worth publication.
Thank you.
And so she did, because good job, Catherine Lavoie. We'll give you the full love.
She did a great job.
Yeah, she did.
She did a great job.
And I'll post it right now, just because.
When I saw this,
if you want to read her story, I'll stick it in the comments on the Facebook Live so you can catch it after we're done talking. Okay, then you can go watch it.
When I saw it, I was like reading, and then I saw Will, and I was like, oh, my baby, and then I got to Nicolette, and I just I lost it because she was really the reason.
That was the initial reason.
Yeah, because I wanted to be with them. What can I teach her if I can't hear you? What can I talk? I can't talk to you about anything. I can't have girls' days. I can't drive around.
You felt like a one-way street, or like pitcher with no catcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, these kids, I don't think really understand how much we love them, but.
No, they take everything for granted.
Yeah,
Pesky teenagers.
But I do. I just hope that she, and her brother understand how much I love them. And
I know they do.
They are the reason for a lot of what I do.
And I think as they get older, they'll realize that more and more, as we do with our parents and with our peers and mentors. And I think that, you finally knuckling up and not procrastinating with Catherine and doing that article, that's nationally done. And that's going to become a point of conversation maybe for some other girl in BFE, Kansas, that's in your shoes.
That's my hope.
14 years ago. That, they say, well, you know what? This is Megan. Here's what she was in the same boat. Look at her now. She's out here. She's a rock star. And so that's just, again, another there's digital you out there talking and telling your story, just like we are today, and just like we did, back in 2012, and just like you have a myriad times since then. I mean, I'm sure you've had those random conversations. I don't know if it's ever happened. Kids and drunks tend to be pretty abrupt in conversation. So you ever have kids just go, "Hey, lady, what's on the side of your freaking head?" Little kids or somebody asks.
Oh, I get people, if my hair's on top of my head.
Right. Which,
you
guys can't see it because their hair's down.
You can't see it, but people stare at me, because it's white.
Sure. Yeah.
I love that it's white. There's
Right.
a story about that. So my sister takes me to, so after my was it before my surgery? It was before my surgery. You have to pick out your equipment.
I gotcha.
It comes in various colors.
Didn't have a Hello Kitty option.
Yeah, and you give it the option. You pick out all the equipment you want, because you get little microphones and all this kind of stuff. And I was looking at it, and I was like, these aren't pretty.
Right.
I don't want gray. I don't
But
want
this
black.
is an accessory you have to wear all the time.
Yeah, well,
right?
I'm a woman,
so you wanted
I'm
to,
I need this to look aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
That might sound ridiculous. Anyway, and my sister,
Not at all. Not
my
at
sister
all.
says, "Well, what about the white one?" And I'm like, because you know what, people get their hair color and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't.
White
want
goes
that.
with everything.
Well, and the other thing is if it falls off my head,
Easy to find. Mm-hmm. And a lot better than hot pink.
a lot
So I'm
better
glad
than
you went
a
with
lot
the
better
white
than
one.
black or brown that matches your carpet.
Right.
Yeah, or your car interior.
Or 80% of the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I just had a woman. I just bought some batteries from a woman in California a couple weeks ago, and some batteries for my speech processor. White is hard to find. People don't want white, and she has white hair, so she has white processor.
Okay.
And she said, "Honey, your hair is so beautiful and brown. Why do you have a white speech processor?" And I said, "Because it's pretty and easy to find. It's, I don't know. I love it." But
Practicality.
my sister was like, "You need to do that white one." So that's what we did.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, and again, like you said, it's something that you're obviously open to talking about, and something that you advocate for people. And so there's the conversation
Did
piece,
you know
right?
that I didn't used to be? My sister, Jenny, would be like, she would say, "Listen, if you're going to go places with me, you really got to start telling people that you can't hear them." This was before my implant.
Oh, yeah.
She would be like, "You're going to have to," and I'm like, "But I don't want to. I'm fine. It's fine. We're
Right.
fine." But she really advocated for me to have the confidence to just own it.
Yeah.
And I think so many people don't.
Well, and it's, not everybody's allowed alpha. I wasn't when I was younger. I mean, and honestly, I can say when we first met and had that first interview, I mean, you've come out of your shell quite a bit since those days,
Thank you.
conversationally and just, talking about these kind of things. But you're right. You have to be, if you're not an extroverted person, it's not always easy to chat about this kind of stuff. So it's cool to see that you can do that now.
And I want the stigma of hearing loss to we want stigmas of things to go away.
Sure.
But I want it to diminish because it's okay. It's okay because there is a solution.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a solution seeker. If somebody comes to me with a problem, I'm like, "Oh, well, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that."
It's interesting to me how in the world, for our entire conscious existence anyway, there have been ways for deaf people to access, blind people to access, whether it's, braille entrances or accommodations, like you go to the ATM, there's a headphone jack, even those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Whatever those situations are, we've been blessed to live in a country and be in a world where that's become just more available around everywhere. However, 99.9% of us go through daily life. We see those things. We never pay attention to it. We never really think, maybe while you're sitting there bored, you're doodling with the ATM dots, But that functionality, that ability for those things to happen, wouldn't happen without people advocating for those things to be everywhere. Mm-hmm. Not everything good results because of a lawsuit. And so people like you that are out advocating for, acceptance of people with cochlear implants, with hearing disabilities, with those kind of things, it goes a long way. And it's showing people who are growing up with that, or people who were affected at a young age like you were, that, you are normal. You are just as cool as the rest of the kids in the class.
And the other thing is it is an absolute gift. I get the best of both worlds.
Mm.
I get to hear, I get to listen to music, I get to hear my kids, I get to hear, I get to do business, I get to come here and be with you today. And then when I go home tonight, I get to take this off, and it is total peace and quiet.
Mm. Now that's something I wish I had
everybody wants?
sometimes.
They're like, I just want peace and quiet.
Yeah.
I just want peace and quiet, And I'm like, get a cochlear implant and you can have it.
It's Megan's magic switch. Come on in.
Yeah, it's like, so often I talk to people about whether it's hearing aids or cochlear implants. I've experience with both. And they're like, oh, I don't really like people that much. And, oh, I don't really want to hear people that much. And I'm like, well, this isn't really about them. It's about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The stuff people is 0.0002% of the annoyances in the world. There's so many more annoying things that you could be hearing if you just go through it. That's what you need to tell them, right?
Yeah. But I'm like,
you're right.
This isn't really about other people. It's about you being able to function. It's about your hearing health, because it causes memory loss. You can't hear anything. Guess what? You can't remember anything.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And those are things that people don't think about.
And there's so much subconscious hearing-related stuff. I mean, just subtle triggers during the day or things that you hear that, it's 2 o'clock because such and such is ringing in the background.
Yes.
Subtle things.
And
in life
driving.
That's huge.
Hearing is imperative for driving.
Yes. Teenagers, don't wear earbuds when you're driving.
Amen.
Ugh.
Little
I saw a kid the other day. I almost pulled the old man get off my lawn moment with this guy. Take those damn earphones off. Anyway. So now here we are, and you are driven. You're working your tail off.
Thank
you. You're hanging out with Nikki and Will. You guys are having a good time. You're keeping your sister in line as you need to be. Yeah, sometimes.
She used to keep me in line, and now it's the other way around.
It's a balance.
It's a balance.
It is a balance. So what's next on deck for you as you keep moving on with things? I mean, do you have anything that you want to do with the cochlear implant wise? You want to start your speaking tour around the country? We'll set those dates up shortly. Reach out. 10% towards me, but.
And I've done some of that, years ago or whatever.
Sure.
I would love to.
Because now that you have been sensitized, since you love your story again, and you shared this one with her, do you feel revitalized to do more of that kind of stuff?
I do. I really do. And I really feel like, and I get messages all the time from people who have cochlear implants, who don't, who want one, who are curious, who their parents have one, or their parents need one, or their kid. A sweet new friend of mine was referred to me by a friend of mine, and she has a little 2-year-old girl, and last fall she was implanted. This mom did not know what to do. She was terrified. Like me, her baby girl had, motor skill issues and speech issues and all these things. She wasn't making any noise because she wasn't hearing anything. And when my article came out last week, she commented and gave me an update on her. And this kid is doing, she's 2, but she's mobile. She's speaking.
She's doing what a 2-year-old.
She's doing what 2-year-olds need to be doing. She's happy. She's laughing. And it's just like, and she's implanted now.
Yeah.
And she's like, we would not have this without you. And I said, no, you would not have this without you.
Yep.
Like, I'm just a messenger.
You're humble too.
Thank you.
Which is good.
Yeah.
But you're a catalyst. You're channeling success with this for people who are uncertain. There's case one. And I think along with that, people who don't have the support network that you had, or the fantastic doctors, not to poo-poo anybody else's doctors, but the doctors that took the time to talk about it, to explain everything, to rehash something they'd probably said 10,000 times before, but they knew it was the first time you heard it and it was important.
And like I said, I could not be more blessed with the medical team and people. My mom and I were talking about this. I just don't really know or understand, like, why he's blessed me so much.
Mm-hmm. You feel guilty, don't you?
I do, because I'm like, I want everyone to have this. I want everyone to have the best audiologists and the best surgeons and the best this. And, you know, and I refer people to them, obviously. You know, but you just, the thing is that he will always give you exactly what you need when you need it.
Yep. Good or bad.
Good or bad.
The trials are there.
Oh, yeah.
For sure, for good reason.
He will allow you to do things or make a certain decision. He's like, that's not, it's like parents. He's like, that's not really good for you, but that you need to learn that.
Me, right now, at 49, can absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want our kids to know.
Mm-hmm. And if you ever question why you're blessed, you know, it is because he continues to use you, and you are using what he's giving you. You're not squandering the blessings and gifts. And so God pours into those who are taking from. And so from the most basic elements of being a good aunt to advocating and helping people who are uncertain, and will help them walk through that path, all those things that you're doing that you don't feel like are a big deal, just part of your day-to-day life. And this is, I'm kind of talking to myself here a little bit too. Those are the things that, you know, put you on that good list and keep you getting blessed, because those blessings are going for use. It's not squander gifts. And so, you know, you're not just going, yep, I can hear, and I'm selling insurance, and by the way, call me today if you need blah, 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 blah. You know, you're going above and beyond. And I think we all have to do that. I mean, none of us have lived such a charmed life where we found ourselves amidst no adversity our entire existence, and our paths were carved for us perfectly. That didn't happen, not since the first one was built. So
exactly. You
know, we have to use what God gives us.
You know, there's this. It's funny that you're talking. It's not funny. It's God, but that you're talking about this.
God's funny.
But it says
He's got great.
It says God pulled you out of the pit. It's this like little meme thing. It says God pulled you out of the pit so you can go back in and get more people out. Don't forget that.
Amen.
It's like He pulled you through the fire because you're like that's your experience.
Yep.
The fire was your experience.
Absolutely.
And
now you are forged, and so
yes.
Go be a good instrument. That's what we do.
That is what we do.
Awesome. You guys, it's been a fun road today. We've been talking for like an hour, believe it or not.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
Can I tell one funny story?
Please do.
Okay, so.
It's the magic of Facebook Live. I mean, we could be on here for 4 hours. It's not even a Zoom call. I didn't have to pay for it.
So, when, after I was implanted, you know, I was cleaning houses and all this kind of stuff. And I know whose house I was cleaning, but I'm not going to say. But I was... It's not bad. It's
okay, good. I like it. Don't give me a nefarious story to wrap up this beautiful interview. I found all these sex swings in their basement.
No, it's funny because they had like a metal TV stand.
Okay.
And I go back. I'm like, get down on my knees so I can like go back and like clean it. And my head got stuck to the TV stand.
Well, it's a very strong magnet, right? This isn't a refrigerator magnet, kids.
But I forgot I had it on. And I was like, okay, Lord, like, you have a sense of humor. Like, we're good. Like,
I'd be freaking out because I'd be like, can I pull away? Is it going to pop out of my head?
That's kind of what my first thought was.
All the worst case scenario stuff going through your head.
Wait a second, how do I get this up? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, it comes off. I was, you know, like, you just,
right.
You're like, oh, wait. Okay, Megan.
Yeah.
Like, get it
I'm
together.
not going to fall apart. But yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I have to be careful what I'm near.
You know? Well, yeah, for sure. Don't hold any cassette tapes up to your ear either. Because that's not how we listen to cassettes anyway, but that'll erase it.
And
that's something that my 10 years older than her can tell you about.
Speech processors for cochlear implants are also water resistant. So people will have questions like, can I swim? Can I go to the lake? Can I do this? Can I whatever? Mm-hmm.
The goal of this is to give you a normal life.
Yeah, it's to
with
get
all the
you
mud
back
and
to
splash
living.
that comes with it.
It's to get you back to living.
Mm-hmm.
You know, God said, let them hear. And as terrifying as it might be, as much of an insecurity as it might give people, it's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I just pray that it helps one person.
Yeah. Well, I do too. And I know that it will. I'm sure there are people in your wake that are much better for the conversations they've had with you.
Thank you. Oh, my gosh. Thank you so much.
We're going to wrap it up. Megan, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
I love you. I think you're amazing.
I love you too.
and we'll get the kids together soon.
Yeah, please. Please.
All right. It's been Humans in Tune on 93.9 Mike FM. Again, I thank you guys for coming and tuning in with us. Thank you to Megan Goncher for being my guest today. You can keep an eye and ear open for the next Humans in Tune segment at 939mikefm.com, or just listen to me. I'll tell you when it's coming. In the meantime, in between time, we're going to get back to the on-air business. For Megan, this is Darren. Have a fantastic afternoon, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for catching this Humans in Tune conversation with 93.9 Mike FM. Find previous interviews on our Facebook page, or you can listen via our podcast at 939mikefm.com.